Welcome to Wheels Off, a show about the messy reality of the creative life. I'm Rhett Miller.
That's when it got wheels off. We started up and we ain't gonna stop. Oh, I said I like it or not. That's when it got wheels off.
Emily Franklin is a novelist from Massachusetts, and she joins me on this newest Wheels Off to talk about her entire creative process, which has led to 25 books that she's released over the years. And her newest book, which takes us all the way back to 1816 and follows Claire Claremont during the summer in which Mary Shelley famously wrote Frankenstein, and a bunch of great literary figures came together that summer and in this book as well, and sort of tell the behind-the-scenes story of the madness behind that time and those people. But she's great. I think you guys are really going to get a kick out of this interview because, you know, first of all, she's a great writer. I can vouch for that. But she's got a sort of different approach. So many of these Wheels Off interviews, I'm talking to musicians who like to sleep late, who sort of chase the muse around in a haphazard fashion. Not Emily Franklin. She is. What was the word she used in this interview? She says the ritualization, or something like that. She has a very ritualized process, and I think it's great. I think it's great to hear about all the different ways that people get to the place where they're able to make art, and Emily's pretty fantastic. You guys are going to really appreciate this, and I'm really grateful that she showed up to be a part of this Wheels Off conversation series. So thank you once again for logging in and listening, and thank you so much to Emily Franklin for joining. Please, without any further ado, give a warm Wheels Off welcome to Emily Franklin. Thank you for joining me. Welcome to Wheels Off, Emily Franklin. How are you?
Good. I'm good. Thanks for having me.
This is so great for the edification of our listeners and viewers now. I guess we're also a visual medium. From where are you logging in?
I am just outside of Boston.
Love it. You have a green thumb.
Yes. Yes, I do. In that, usually I'm at this time of year, I'm in my garden, but this time of year, right now, I'm actually just started my book tour, so I don't get to be in the garden as much. But yes, I try to keep as many plants alive as possible.
Do you have a lot of plants that you have to move from outdoors to indoors during the winter kind of thing?
Sometimes, yeah, when I'm trying not to kill them.
There you
Yeah.
go. My wife, Erica, is also an avid gardener, and it's the same thing. There's a lot of, what I'm good at is carrying the plants indoors and outdoors.
Everybody needs somebody to help with that. So that is useful. But yeah, I like to grow my own vegetables as much as possible and do canning and preserving and make pickles and, that sort of thing.
I love that. Well, congratulations on Love and Other Monsters. It's I've started it and I'm into it, and I'm into it. It's great.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's really, as you may know by now, it's really a novel about a lot of different things, the untold origin story of Frankenstein, but also the monster of making art. And
Yes.
the benefits and the pitfalls of all of that, the monsters that we create, on the page, and the ones who walk among us.
Well, that's perfect. That's what this podcast of 225 episodes now is all about, is how do we do this thing? Sometimes why do we do this thing?
Right.
I'll ask because I'm imagining that this novel, though, has been in the can for you for a while. And I wonder, and I know you're starting a book tour, so this has got to be an annoying question. Sorry. But is there already another creative project that you're working on?
Well, so that's a two-parter, really. I'll answer the second one first. So yes, there is another project that actually finished another book, and
Wow.
it comes out in 2028, and it's short stories called The Side Effects of Happiness. They're all short stories told from the point of view of women in medicine,
Wow.
sort of like The Pit meets George Saunders.
Amazing.
And so that is in the editing process. But Love and Other Monsters, yeah, I started this. I got the idea for it in 2009, so a long time ago. It's my 25th book, but I read an article in 2009 in the New York Times by a guy you might have heard of, whose name is Guillermo del Toro.
Of course.
And so he and I turned out to be working on Frankenstein things at the same time. And so that is how this novel came to be.
That's so cool. And like my vision of writers is that you are very solitary people, and you're about to embark on a tour, which will include a lot of interaction with other human beings. How does that work for you?
Yeah, it's funny. My brother and I were talking, and he was describing me as like a very skilled extrovert. Like I really enjoy the extroversion, and also it's very taxing. So like by the end of it, I'm sort of like, and I need to be sort of plugged in to recharge, because I definitely recharge alone. And, I recharge alone, like on my runs or in the garden. And both of those are really hard to do on tour. Um, and so, it's just a balance, and it's trying to enjoy sharing the art with people, and also know that this part of the job is very different than the creation part of the job. And I'm sure it's like everything all lives together in the same brain, but it's very distinct parts.
It seems like there was a time with both of our jobs when the thing that was the job was the job, like, the writing a
Yes.
book or the
Yes.
making music. And now, I mean, don't even get me started on social media. Now you're expected to be a content creator as well.
It
How do
that I just have not, I joined Instagram about 5 minutes ago under duress from my publicist, mainly because people wanted to tag me in things. I have 4 kids, and the way I've raised them is really, how you spend your days is how you will have spent your life.
Yes.
And I don't wanna look back on those minutes of being online, or, somebody asked me at an event this week if I read all of the reviews that are written about me. And I said, "No, I don't." And another writer who was there said, "Well, she does because she's so curious what people have to say." And, I don't do it because I'm not curious, and I don't do it because I wanna save myself the criticism. I just don't do it because I don't wanna spend my hours. Everybody has such a finite amount of time here. I wanna do other things. And so, yeah, the social media part of the job expectation, while at the same time being alive in 2026 means that you have some presence and some awareness of that. And I'll give it 10 minutes a day.
Wow. That's great. Most people are more than that, just so you know.
Yes, I hear. So I hear.
I love that. So I wonder for you, 25 books, that is mind-boggling. When you were a kid, was this it? Was it clear? Was there an epiphany moment that you remember where you knew you'd be a writer?
Well, it's funny. I grew up in a family of doctors, and so I think for a long time I thought I'd go to medical school. A lot of my writing has science or math or medicine in it. Even the poetry has math in it. But I decided I'd rather be a writer who has sort of science and medicine in the writing, or than be a frustrated physician who didn't have time to write. But I think the other part of it is, as you probably experienced, unlike being a doctor, where there's a very clear path to what you have to do to become a doctor. When you say to somebody, "I'd really like to be a writer," they're like, "Good luck with that. Tell me how it works out." So there wasn't really a clear pathway. For me, I started publishing. My first stuff that I ever published was poetry. So at my core, poetry is still really the scaffolding and structure of everything that I write, and it's the technique that I fall back on the most, the skills that I fall back on the most. But my high school creative writing teacher essentially acted as my literary agent and would send pieces out for me, and they would sort of be published or win contests. And he would just report back and be like, "Well, that piece sold," or "that got published." And after high school, I realized, like, oh, wait, I don't have anybody to do that. And I had to sort of figure that all out on my own. So, yes, I always wanted to do this. I wrote very, very terrible poetry starting like at 4 years old. I mean, it's hilarious to find. It's really like if you ever want to start a dramatic reading series with me called like Bad Lyrics and Bad Poetry, I really feel that it has all the makings for like a great bar or movie theater or karaoke situation of just like dramatic readings of terrible things. But I had no idea where to go from there. And eventually, you just sort of figure it out.
How old were you when you had your first piece published?
Oh, after the poems? I mean, well, I was 14 the
Okay.
first time I had a piece published. And then at 16, I won a poetry contest, and then that sort of kept going for a long time. I didn't turn to fiction really until graduate school.
Mhm.
And then yeah, and then I just never looked back.
So you talk about the obvious path. Some writers will go to. I remember when I went to Sarah Lawrence and quickly dropped out. The idea was that it was the best creative writing school in America, and then there would
You
have.
know that I went there for undergrad.
See, there you go. What year? Well, we don't have to do
Well, I
this.
think you're a little bit older than I am, but I did
I
go
am.
there. I was at Oxford for part of it because we lived in England at the time, so I wanted to be home. But it was a great place to focus on the writing.
Yes.
Um, but even then, nobody says, and then you do this, and then you get to be a writer. That's not really how it works. So you can be I started an MFA program at Columbia after graduation, and I left that because I felt like all I had to write about was being in a writing class. I was like, who wants to read that story? So I went and like followed the wrong person to the wrong state for a grueling job, which ended up being really useful for me, and a relationship that proved fruitful in the artistic sense and maybe not so good like in the interpersonal way. But and then I just found my way back to writing, but having had some really good hands-on experience and becoming a cook, and which I end up writing a cookbook, so you never know where things are going to lead.
Wow. And so your work ethic must be incredible to have the kind of output that you do. Is it compulsion? Is it self-discipline? Is there,
Uh,
can you say why? How?
it's a compulsion because I feel okay. I mean, like it's not driven. I've never been driven by external forces or competition. I can be really annoying to people because I don't have the competitive spirit. So like I'm somebody who you would want on your team for morale, not because, like I really care about winning, because I'm never going to care about winning. And even when people would be competitive about, oh, I don't know, grades or things like that, like it just seems to me like it's pointless. Like there's not a finite amount of those things. So, it was internally driven. But in terms of now, like my output, I think part of it is just time management skills with 4 kids, and like having 4 kids under 8 with no childcare. It was just sort of like, how am I carving out some space for myself? How am I not losing my identity in parenthood? And which I think is really hard, and it's hard when you're the sort of primary stay-at-home caregiver, but also I have this artistic identity, and how am I going to hang on to that? And I think the other part of my personality is that, like I've always been an early to bed, early to rise person, and I've always liked structure. So I pretty much follow the same routine every day. Like I wake up, I have a like very large, like if this looks large, this is like the baby mug of my mugs. This is my mugs baby. And so I have like a vat of coffee, and I read a chapter in whatever book I'm reading, not my own book, but somebody else's book. And then without looking at a screen, no screens. And then I go for a run. And then I come back and I start work. And then I work, and I pretty much still keep school hours. I was never like an all-nighter person. Um, and because I write in multiple genres, I never had that creative issue of like, well, what if the words aren't coming? Because I can just switch. And if it's not coming in this, I write a poem. And if it's not coming in that, I write an essay. And if it's not coming in that, I, turn to young adult fiction. Or so there's lots of different things. And then if nothing is coming, then I take a walk, or I go be in nature, or I be with my dogs or something like that. So I think for me, what works is this sort of pretty highly routinized structure. Not that I can't veer away from it, but it does help. And I think for me anyway, like creativity breeds creativity, writing breeds writing. The more you write, the easier it is to write. The same thing, like even with running or something. Like if you haven't run in months, you're like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that. That sounds really hard. And then, but if you've been running pretty regularly, you're like, oh, that sounds really fun,
So I imagine with 4 kids, it seems like there's probably a lot going on all the time, and there will be times where they're at school or whatever, but I wonder, have you gotten good about being able to write in the midst of chaos, or are you pretty, do you
Um,
need quiet?
well, so first of all, I became an empty nester this fall, so that's very weird.
Yeah.
Um, it's awfully quiet. It's actually like lovely in some ways and very painfully baggy in
Mm.
other ways. Like you stretch out your life so much, and then when things are empty, you still have that space, but it actually just feels baggy. That's all I
Yeah.
can describe it as. Um, but no, I even early on, like even in my teens or 20s, like I can write anywhere. I don't need it to be quiet. I can write in a cafe and I can write at home. The only thing I can't do at home is I cannot write to music because I wind up singing along.
Yeah, I knew that about you.
Um,
Was there ever an alternate life where you were a musician, do you think?
Singer, yeah. And so that's really, really hard. And I have a weird ability to recall lyrics. And so I really just I can't have that because it's just like, it just wins every time. But on my runs and stuff, I mean, like, I look like I'm possessed because I'm like gesturing and I'm singing and having like the best time. My friend calls it like one of my disco runs where I'm just like,
Can you write to, like, ambient music?
yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
I can write to Glenn Gould, I can write to, you know, um, classical music. I just can't write when I could sing.
Yeah, same. I get that 100% because it's lyrics,
Right.
it's words.
It's
How
so
how
and then there's just like words in there, and then I also sometimes worry about like words leaking in and leaking out. I don't like that. I don't wanna have that. The same reason that I don't read in the genre that I'm writing,
Yes.
because again, I just don't wanna have that influence or for good or bad, like I just don't wanna it sort of feels like
Yeah.
I need to create a moat.
An early Wheels Off guest, Michael Chabon, has a great Spotify world, but he's got some great playlists that are for writing,
Hmm,
instrumental music and ambient music, and
okay.
so he's that's pretty good. That's my go-to, but I love this. So you've already kind of addressed how you deal with noise in your head, noise in the world. I wonder when you come up against like the self-generated interior obstacles, like the things that keep us from doing our best work or being our best self, what strategies have you come up with to get past those? The the
Well,
the negative inner voices.
I guess, you're sort of getting into like my deep inner core here. Part of it is the self-criticism, right? So like, and that I just think, you just have to let go of it. So I think one technique is to sort of talk to yourself the way that you would talk to your own child. Because like we would never be as, or we would hope to never be as critical, to our children. And so just to say, like, offer a little bit of grace. And also just, I think so much of it comes to, for me, acceptance of like, not every day is going to be like a 5-star rating day or a 10-star, whatever your scale is. I don't know. Like, so you just say like, it wasn't great today. Sometimes I write a lot of stuff and it's not good. And you just go, well, that was still time on task, right? You know,
Yeah.
it was still something. And, I took up painting this year. So even if I'm painting in the afternoon, I'm like, it's still the creative process. It's still like art coming through you and a way of seeing and a way of being, and a sort of meditative practice. And so I think that that's good. Um, and I think that, the sort of the taking a walk is always really helpful, like, if I need to get unstuck. Um, and again, I think so much of that comes back to acceptance also. So, it's sort of like accepting like with writing and I don't know if it's the same way for you writing a song, but, like, it's certainly songwriting and poetry are really is very similar. They're at least this, if not that.
Yes.
Um, and so, as I said, poetry informs everything that I do. So sometimes, all that's salvageable from a day is just a line, but it might be a really good line. And if it's not a line that works now, you can like just scavenge from your own self, like years later, where you're like, I'm looking through the rubble of the things that got cut or didn't work. What can I reuse? And then you pluck it out and it turns out to be a whole other song or a whole other poem or a whole other scene that works its way into 11 Other Monsters or something. So that's really useful. And I think for me, the whole philosophy of not being too hard on the bad days, like, um, I also like don't have a great time like celebrating the awesome day. Like it's like for me, try to exist a little bit more in the middle. I don't love the big swings of like super low, super high, like because neither are really true, right? So the worst day is probably not the worst writing you've ever done, certainly not the worst writing that the world's ever seen, and the best also equally true. So it's really like in the middle. And I just try to like give myself a little bit of patience and grace and sort of um treat their creativity with respect, but it is also a job. So part of why I've been so productive, I guess, or prolific is because it's like any other job. Like I've never had the sort of either financial situation or mindset of like, well, I just don't feel inspired today, so I'm going to work. It's like if you were a trash collector or if you were, a physician, you'd have to sit down and do your work. And so I sit down and I do my work.
It's funny that you bring that up, the idea that if you were independently greatly wealthy or whatever, then maybe you wouldn't work. I wonder, do you feel like hunger, whatever version of that is in your life and your work, is a nice driving force? Like,
Um, I don't know because I am looking not to be hungry and not to, I mean, literally hungry. And I have health insurance, through my spouse, but I think we all need some sort of driving force. And in terms of the independently wealthy, again, hard to know, but what I have seen from certain artists, writers, is that without the need for financial compensation, sometimes they have been able to take greater risks earlier on.
ah,
And I never felt that I could do that or I should do that because if an agent is saying, this seems that this is good, you're happy with it, and don't push it too far, we can sell this. But if you take it over here, we might not be able to. And I got to pay for 4 kids. Like I might make a safer choice. And so some of the stuff that I've been doing more recently is just sort of, and certainly in the short stories and in 11 Other Monsters, thematically, there's some dark stuff in there. There's some very modern like content for a story that's set in 1816 that I think for some people may be alluring and for some people may be hard to read about. I mean, this is really sort of following on the heels of Me Too and Epstein and all of these men who abuse power and the idea of complicity, not just from men but from women. And there's a lot of stuff in there. And maybe this far along into my career, I feel like I can take those risks. I'm not sure.
interesting. Yeah, well, I mean, if not now, when? You've earned it. The kids are out of the house. You can lean into the darker moments in your work.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. I mean, the book is really great, and I feel like you really capture a voice in this book that speaks to the time period and the characters. It's very poetic. I guess that's my point. Is I feel like it's obvious that your foundations are in poetry.
Oh, well, thank you. I mean, I feel like my when I work with people who are starting off in writing, I mean, I think poetry is a great teacher for all of the genres, songwriting included, because you're creating a narrative that has to have a driving force, even if it's not a narrative poem, although most of my poems really were narrative. And even your line breaks have to be the driving force that brings you to the next line. And so you get very good at the editing out of words and the taking of these really big ideas and winnowing them down into this small space and um trying to make sure that you have the economy there that
Yeah.
still has a really big emotional punch that you want.
Mm, I love that. It's been coming up a lot lately in my own songwriting classes. Anything you can take out of a song and the song still works, take it out.
Yes. Right, and that you have to do that even in, like, this honkin' novel here. Like, you have to and that's why I read everything aloud at least 3, 4, sometimes even 5, 6 times to make sure that, again, if you can take it out and the sentence still holds, the scene still holds, it comes out. Even if it shows that, like, you've done your research. I never wanna see the machinations of research on the page. You never wanna see, like, "I worked very hard on this song." Like, here is how to make a song not sound really good. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, nobody wants to see that. It should just be this fluid, thing of catchy beauty and thought, and so you wanna have that out there.
I love that. Well, I feel like this is a lot of great wisdom that you've already shared. I wonder if you would try to maybe distill some of this. Imagine a 21-year-old version of you in
Mhm.
today's world and what advice you might give her.
Oh gosh. I guess for me personally, maybe, um, there's a line in the book, like, which comes back to something you were talking about. In Love and Other Monsters is a Claire Claremont is the main character, and she's puzzling over the fact that the critical voice that she hears in her head is actually when she comes to realize it's not her own. And I think for all of us, we can hear ourselves being critical, but a lot of the time it isn't our voice. So I think part of it is whose voice is that? And why have you given this person authority over you and over your days? So maybe to examine that as a 21-year-old, like shedding these heavy cloaks of shame that we all walk around with for whatever we experienced as young people. I would try to wriggle out from under that a little bit earlier. And Yeah, the problem is like I don't have any regretful advice because I wouldn't necessarily be where I am without all of the, shitty stuff, the good stuff all mushed together.
Yeah. I love that. And I think the new book it already feels so empowering. It feels like this really strong, useful, document. I love it. Thank you so much
Oh,
for all of this.
well, thanks for reading it, and yeah, I'll get you some poetry to look at.
Yes, I love. Well, you know me. I'm a secret poet because music is more acceptable apparently. Just pretend that it's rock
Well,
and
that's the
roll.
thing is like again, I didn't turn to fiction until 22, 23, 24. So much is poetry, and I just finished my second poetry collection, so we'll see if that gets published. I don't know.
Oh, I'm sure it will. You're so great.
Well, I'm sure yours will. The
Oh,
poems Brett Miller.
yeah. Well, there's already a book of children's poems out there, but
Well,
that's
that I know, but I
that's
meant
but that's cheating.
it's not really cheating. Why is
It is.
that cheating?
Oh, because it's too fun. I mean, poetry
Yeah,
shouldn't
but
be
yeah,
that
but no
fun.
more poems than your adult one could be some more poems.
Oh man. Well, good luck on the book tour. You're going to be great, and by the end of it, you'll be ready to hide in a room and write us more books.
I feel like that's, the slogan of every night for me is like, I'm ready to hide in my room now, except that, so many book events start at night. I mean, we were talking about this, like, at your show. I really wish that everybody wanted to go see a rock show at around 4 in the afternoon, and maybe they wanted to do, like, a bagel and coffee book talk at 10 in the morning.
Uh,
Sometimes I have, like, people ask me, "Will I do an author talk at lunch?" I'm like, "Yes, I will," because I just wanna go to bed at night.
I'm remembering the Strand books in New York City when my kids' poems book first came out, made a book event for me for the kids at 8 p.m.
Who what for which
I
kid?
Yeah, exactly. Like kids that are being poorly raised.
Yes. No, for those, like, New York kids who, like, wear a fedora and, like, suspenders and are out until 10 at night.
It's so true. Man, well, this is so great. Thank you so much, Emily, for taking the time and congrats on the new book. It's so
Well,
great.
thanks so much for having me, and, I appreciate, the read and the conversation, and I'll see you around.
More to come.